He didn't text you back as fast as usual. Your boss walked by you without saying anything. Someone in the group went quiet after you spoke. Nothing you can really name has happened, and yet you're now running it back, looking for what it meant. And somewhere underneath, the question you're asking is really about you. Whether you said the wrong thing, whether they're pulling away, whether you're as welcome here as you thought. That's insecurity, and most people describe it as low self-esteem, as simply not thinking well of yourself. But that doesn't quite fit what's happening, because the same person who spins out over a slow reply might be completely solid somewhere else, unbothered, sure of themselves, in no need of anyone's confirmation. Insecurity isn't a flat, low opinion of the whole self. It shows up in a particular place about a particular thing. And there it has a specific quality. Your sense of being okay stops being something you hold and becomes something that has to keep getting confirmed. That's the part we're going to slow down here, because it explains the restless, scanning quality of it, the way an insecure moment sends you looking outward for an answer, when a secure moment wouldn't even raise the question at all. Watch what the insecure moment is actually doing. A signal comes in, a slow reply, a flat tone, a room that goes quiet. On its own, it's small, and it could mean a dozen things. But it doesn't stay small. It gets pulled into a much larger question, one that was already open before the signal arrived. What does this say about me? Am I okay here? The signal is minor and ambiguous. The question it gets recruited into is neither, and that's the tell. The same slow reply lands on two people completely differently. For one person, it's nothing, just a busy afternoon. For another person, it's a small verdict about them. The reply is identical. What differs is the question each person's carrying and whether the reply gets asked to answer it. Let's look at this in a new way. I work in a framework called psychological architecture. It reads a person's behavior across 4 domains. Mind, how you interpret what's in front of you. Emotion, what stirs up in response to that interpretation. Identity, the sense of who you are and what you are. And meaning, what a given moment adds up to. These 4 aren't sealed compartments. Weight in one moves into the next. Watch where the weight sits here. Start with identity, because that's where the question comes from. In some parts of yourself, being okay feels settled. You don't need anyone to keep confirming it, and a stray signal doesn't move it. But there are other parts of you where that sense of being settled isn't quite there, and insecurity is what happens in those places. There, your standing isn't something you can confirm from the inside. It stays partly open, contingent on what comes back from the outside. And an open question about your own standing, it doesn't sit quietly. It waits for anything that might answer it, which is where mind comes in. When a piece of your standing is contingent, you become sensitive to evidence about it. Not everywhere, just there, in the area that isn't settled. And you watch for that evidence in whatever carries it. Sometimes that's other people, a tone, a look, who replied, who didn't. And sometimes it's a number, a metric, a mirror, a comparison. The monitoring rises around the specific thing that isn't secure, because that's the thing the open question keeps asking about, which shapes meaning, because now an ambiguous signal arrives while a question about your standing is already hanging there, and the ambiguity gets resolved through that question. Nothing negative has to be invented out of nowhere. The reading that speaks to what's already unsettled simply carries more weight than the one that doesn't. The slow reply genuinely could mean they're busy, but the busy reading has little to do with the question already hanging there. The pulling away reading speaks straight to it, so it carries more weight. And that settles into emotion as the drop, the sink in the stomach, the preoccupation, the pull to check again or fix it. That feeling isn't really coming from the reply. It's coming from the standing that just seemed to shift in the one area where your okayness was writing on the answer. Now watch how it sustains itself. The feeling itself becomes evidence. If a slow reply can unsettle me this much, then something real must have been at stake, which means the next signal matters more, not less. So the monitoring happens, and sharper monitoring, aimed at an ambiguous world, keeps turning up more signals to read through the same open question. The watching that was meant to resolve the uncertainty keeps finding fresh material for it. The question stays open by being asked so often. And this is why reassurance often doesn't last. You tell someone their standing is fine, and it helps. The relief is real. But it answers the question in the moment without changing the thing that keeps the question open, which is that this piece of their standing is still contingent on what comes back from the outside. So the answer is true and it lands, and then the question becomes available again because the underlying contingency hasn't changed. The reassurance was never the problem, and it was never quite the solution. So the insecurity was never really about the slow reply or the quiet room or any of the signals that set it off. Those were just what the open question reached for. Insecurity is what happens in the places where your sense of being okay is still kept somewhere you can't reach on your own. So it has to be read off the world instead, again and again, in whatever the world happens to send back. So here's the question. Most of us have at least one of these places. Of course you want to be thought well of. Everyone does. The sharper question is, in what part of your life is your sense of being okay still held outside you, waiting on something or someone else to keep telling you that it is?